everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Power of vision. All right, last week we discussed how vision simplifies life. All right, we talked about how vision simplifies life. We talked about vision gives you a destiny, which dictates your decision. So anytime you have vision, God gives you a clear picture. He gives you big picture, and he shows you the end. He shows you what you shall be. He shows you your purpose. He shows you your destiny, and that dictates your decision. I told you last week, when God shows you big picture, it should help you in your daily decision making. Does this help me get to where God wants me to be, or does this hinder me? How does this work compared to big picture? So that's what vision does. Vision helps simplifies life, and it also helps dictate your decision. All right. Vision is defined as foresight, looking ahead, with insight, looking around, based on hindsight, based on what you've been through. All right. So you want to make sure you get that part. Vision is defined as foresight, looking ahead, looking into my future, looking into my destiny, with insight, looking around. Who do I need to partner with? Who do I need to, what's my plan based on what's going on around me now? And all of that's governed by decisions that we've seen in days gone by. All right. Vision is the implementation of God's plan without all the details. All right. Vision is God giving you a plan, but he doesn't give you all of the details. All right. So you got to make sure you understand that vision doesn't give you all of the details. All right. Vision is seeing the invisible and making it visible. All right. That's what vision is, seeing the invisible and then making it visible. All right. Vision is also the image of the vision must be clarified in order to be realized. All right. A lot of people saying, man, I don't realize what God has for me. It's not clear to me. You got to ask God to clarify the vision for you so that it can be realized, and then you can bring it to manifestation. All right. And then also opposition. Opposition is to be expected when encountering vision. God will never give you a vision without allowing some opposition. And what we need to understand is not every part of opposition is going to be external. All right. Sometimes the opposition will come from internal fights that you have with self. You begin to doubt what God has shown you. You become complacent with where you are. You become fearful of where God is leading you, and you become fatigued of all the fighting and all of the battles that you have to fight on a daily basis. And sometimes we get weary before we get to the end. All right. And then the last one is no vision. No vision leads to a loose life. There's no discipline. You get up every day. There's really no structure to your life. And so you live a loose life with no discipline. You just make decisions based on how you feel that day, and you never really get into what God has for you. All right. So you want to make sure you remember these as we move forward. All right. Let's jump into tonight. Let's jump into tonight's lesson. All right. People who complete great work for the Lord are able to see the whole trip in their minds before they leave the dock. All right. People who complete great work for the Lord, they're able to see the whole trip in their minds before they leave the dock. All right. So before they even get started, they can see it. They can see it in their mind. And that's how most people are. They see it in their mind. They got an idea. It's clear in their mind. So they already see the end in their minds before they even get started. All right. They have a vision for their destination. They understand what it will take to get there. They know who they'll need on the team to be successful, and they recognize obstacles long before they appear on the horizon. All right. Remember those three things. All right. If you got vision in your mind, you vision, and God shows you big picture, he shows you the destination, you're going to understand this before you ever get started. You're going to understand what it's going to take to get there. All right. You're going to come to this realization. I can't do this by myself. So I need to know who do I need on my team? Who do I need on my team to be successful? Who don't I need on my team to be successful? And then the last one is you're going to recognize obstacles long before they appear on the horizon. All right. When God began to show me some things, I said, okay, this person is going to be a problem because they're not going to want to see me succeed. This person is going to be a problem. You already see that. So when they show up, it's not a surprise. All right. It's not a surprise. People who understand destiny and they see vision, Opposition don't catch them off guard because God has already shown you them. All right. You just have to believe who they are. Lord have mercy. We're going to get into that in just a minute. All right. So if I want to complete what God has for me, if I want to complete what God has for me, completion requires these three things. Make sure you get this right here. Completion requires these three things: knowing your purpose. What's your purpose? What's your purpose? What's your goal? What's your mission? You got to know that up front. Make your plans. All right. Once you know your purpose, sit down, make your plans, and then understand the process. All right. Once you understand those three things, completion is almost guaranteed. All right. It's almost guaranteed. If you know your purpose, you make your plans, and you understand the process. All right. A lot of people, they sit down, they say, okay, I know what I want to do. I done made my plans. But then they start going through the process like, man, I didn't think it was going to take all this. I thought it was going to be a lot easier. So they walk away not completing it because they didn't understand that purpose is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. If you can complete your purpose overnight, that's not from God. All right. That's not from God. All right. Vision is not the capacity to see with one's eyes what is already. All right. That's not vision. That's not vision. That's just sight. All right. To see with one's eyes what is already, but the ability to imagine what it could be. All right. When I see something, I see what it is already. That's not my vision. That's just insight to what it is already. But when I begin to have the ability to imagine what it could be, all right. That's why I tell people all the time, two people can look at the same thing. And somebody can look and say, man, that's this big old piece of junk. They need to tear that down. But somebody else can look at it like, ooh, if I had that, I would do this. And they like, I don't see that. That's because you're not a visionary. All right. A visionary can look at what is and see what it can be. All right. A visionary can look at what is and look in their mind and visualize what could be. All right. So you got to understand that visionaries have the unusual power of discernment to see the possibilities and of making the vision become a reality. And that's what we're going to really drive home tonight. It doesn't do any good to have a vision if you can't make it become a reality. They said the greatest collection of visionaries is in your local cemetery. All right. The greatest collection of visionaries can be found in your local cemetery, because there are a lot of people who died with vision. They died with vision. They died with vision. They had all these ideas, but they didn't take time to know the purpose, to make the plans, and understand the process. So they died with all of that vision. All right. One of the things I love doing is when I go to a football game, and I'm sitting with people who played football in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. They can tell you what the coach should have called. They can tell you what works, what don't work. It's always easy to look back and say what you should have done than to look ahead and say what could be. All right. Does that make sense to you? If you sit down with somebody who played football a long time ago, they can tell you every decision the coach should have made. They can look at it and tell you what players are not doing. But visionaries, they don't look back and tell you what you should have done. Visionaries look ahead and tell you what could be. All right. And so when we begin to talk about visionaries, Nehemiah was a visionary leader. That's why I love studying the book of Nehemiah, because he gives us some leadership principles that visionaries see. All right. So what was unique about Nehemiah? He was stirred by faith. There was something on the inside that stirred his faith, and by his trust in God to be God's instrument to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. His prayer was, Lord, use me as an instrument to do something great for my people. All right. And he was stirred by faith, and he trusted God to be used by God as an instrument to rebuild the wall. All right. His vision stirred him to action, but he needed help to make his vision become a reality. Don't ever think you're at the point where I got this vision, but I don't need nobody. And we sang this song, and every time I hear it, I start to cringe every time I hear it. Long as I got King Jesus, long as I got King Jesus, long as I got King Jesus, I don't need nobody else. But if you're a visionary, you're going to need people to make the vision come to pass, or you just got a personal goal. All right. Visionaries impact other people. So yes, God is necessary, but you also going to be connected with people to make the vision a reality. All right. So don't get into this concept, but I don't need people. I can make it go by myself. Nehemiah shows us that in order to do something great for God, he's going to surround you with the necessary people. All right. Nehemiah returned to Jerusalem. He returned to Jerusalem to do these three things: to cast his vision, and to challenge the people of Jerusalem to be involved. That's the hardest part. God will show it to you, but now you got to challenge people to get involved and to motivate them to accomplish something that's important, to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. And why do you want to do that? Here's the key: so that the people may no longer suffer disgrace. All right. The whole purpose of Nehemiah's vision was so that the people may no longer suffer disgrace. It ought to bother you that people are constantly living beneath their means. It ought to bother you that people are just satisfied with mediocrity. It ought to bother you that people just get up every day, do the same old, same old. And that's what Nehemiah says. He said, man, I need to do this so that my people will no longer suffer disgrace. All right. So now here's what we're going to look at tonight. How do we bring the vision into reality? How do we bring the vision into reality? Like I said before, it's no good to have vision if it's never completed. All right. So watch this. It's not enough to cast vision. God's mission is for the vision to be completed. All right. That's God's mission, is for the vision to be completed. What has God shown you in your life that you need to put it into reality? All right. One of the things that I tell people all the time is, if I promise you, everybody that's on here tonight, they got that finta list, that finta list. I'm finta do this. I'm finta finish this. I'm finta do the garage. I'm finta do this. I'm finta. All right. God is saying, when will you complete? When will you complete? Because the God that we serve is a God of completion. He's a God of completion, but all of his servants are finna finish something. All right. Watch what he says. Genesis chapter 2, from the very beginning. By the seventh day, God had finished his work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested. John chapter 4, verse 34, Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. John chapter 19, verses 30, on the cross, he said, so when Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Philippians 1:6, he says, being confident of everything, he that began a good work in you will do what? He will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Hebrews 12:2, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despised the shame, and now he's seated at the right hand of God. So in other words, we serve a God who's the God of completion. All right. So if I serve the God of completion, and the God of completion gives me a vision, he's going to also give me the power and the perseverance to finish, because I ought to be in the image of God. I ought to want to complete things like he does. So that's why Nehemiah 6:15 is so important. So on October 2nd, the wall was finished. On October 2nd, the wall was finished just 52 days after it had begun. And what's important to me is that when you look at and you study the history, the wall had been broken down for over 147 years, and they finished it in 52 days. All right. So why in the world did it stay broken for that length of time? Nobody had the vision. Nobody had the wherewithal to do it. And God put it in one person's mind. One person had the vision, and they did in 52 days what people couldn't do in 140 years. And a lot of times that's what gets us. Well, ain't nobody done it in 140 years. Ain't no need to trying to do it now. You know, God says, no, that's why you're here. I called you for such a time as this, to do in 52 days what people couldn't do in 140 years. All right. That's what vision does. All right. So here's what Nehemiah does. Nehemiah teaches us to remain disciplined, devotional, and dedicated to the vision until completion. All right. So in chapter 1, he got it right with God. In chapter 2, he got it right with the king and developed his strategy for success. In chapter 3, he implemented his plan of putting people in position to be useful and effective. In chapter 4, he dealt with distractions, discouragement, and detractors. In chapter 5, he counted the cost for completion. And we just read in chapter 6, verse 15, the wall was finished. All right. So those are your principles. Those are your principles. Let's jump right in. All right. Principle number one. Prayer is vital to vision. All right. That's principle number one. Prayer is vital to vision. You will never complete your vision if it's never started with prayer. All right. You will never complete your vision if you don't start it with prayer. All right. Notice what it says, Nehemiah chapter 1, verses 3 and 4, and verse number 11. And they said to me, the survivors who were left from the captivity in the province are there. They're there. There's some people there, but they are in great distress and reproach. All right. They're there, but they're living bad. They're living bad. The wall of Jerusalem is also broken down, and its gates are burned with fire. That's the report he got. So it was when I heard these words that I sat down and wept and mourned for many days. I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. Oh Lord, I pray, please let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who desire to fear your name. And let your servant prosper this day, I pray, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man. All right. So that was his prayer in chapter 1. All right. Vision must be bathed in prayer. All right. Vision must be bathed in prayer. Prayer was Nehemiah's first resort, not his final option. All right. Make sure you get that. Nehemiah, prayer was his first resort, not his final option. Because you know how we do it. We'll put this plan in place. We'll start doing everything. And then we say, oh, yeah, Lord, I need you to bless this for me. Hey, Lord, I need you to do this for me. Lord, I need you to do this. He said, no. I started with prayer before I ever put my plan in place. All right. So he started with prayer. That was his first resort, not his final option. So anytime you want to do something great for God, let prayer be your first resort, not your final option. All right. So because prayer was his first resort, not his final option, he wanted to obtain God's power before implementing his plan. All right. He wanted to obtain God's power before implementing his plan. All right. So before he ever put his plan in place, he said, God, I need your power. All right. I need your power. I have a plan, but before I put my plan in place, I need your power. All right. And in order to prevail before man, he first gets it right with God. All right. He first gets it right with God. And that's one of the things I often tell people about the Mount Olive Baptist Church. We talk about the partnership that we have with Mount Olive between pastor and people. And there are people from the outside looking in. It's like, man, y'all seem like y'all love each other. It seem like you do this. And I said, it's amazing to me that when I talk about the history of Mount Olive selecting a pastor, and Deacon Scroggins and them shared this with me, that the church went in prayer for 8 straight weeks. For 8 straight weeks, all they did was pray. And they prayed and asked God, God, send us this. This is what we want. We want somebody who's married, who's young, who's seminary trained, and who's not pastoring right now. That's what we want. And they prayed and asked God to send them that. So they had 61 candidates, and there was one person who had all those things. Here's what they said. We want to obtain God's power before we put our search committee plan in place. All right. So God sent them the one that they had prayed for even before they put their plan in place. All right. So you got to understand, if you want God to direct your future, pray to him today. All right. If you want God to do something powerful in your future, start praying about it today before you implement your plan. All right. Proverbs 21:1 says this: the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. He directs it like a water course wherever he pleases. All right. Let me give you the Pastor Ellison remix. Your boss's heart, your supervisor's heart is in the hand of the Lord, and he directs it like a water course wherever he pleases. All right. I tell people this all the time. Some people tell me, Pastor, I would love when we was in the building, Pastor, I would love to come to Bible study, but my boss won't let me off on Wednesday evening to come to Bible. My boss won't let me do it. I said, have you prayed about it? Have you asked God to touch your boss's heart to let you off on weekends to come to church, to let you off on Sunday? He ain't going to do this. You know how some people, I said, now, based on what Proverbs 21 says, if you come to me and say you need to be off on weekends to serve the Lord, to do what God's called you to do, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, and he can direct it whichever way he please. All right. So you got to understand that if you have a vision, he can go to the banker and direct his heart in the way that pleases him before you even get there. He can go to your enemy and do their heart, direct their heart before you even get there. And that's the power of prayer. Now watch this. Purposeful prayer involves specific petitions. Right? Notice what he says. He made his request known to God. That's what I love about Nehemiah. He made his request known to God. He said, let your servant prosper this day. I cannot build the wall if I'm not prosperous myself. I cannot put people in position to prosper if you don't bless me to be prosperous, and then grant me the mercy that I need because I got to pass. All right. So he was purposeful in his prayer. And that's all Philippians 4:6 says. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. All right, that's what I love about that. Let your requests be made known to God. The saints of old used to say it like this: Jesus on the main line, Just tell him what you want. All right. Tell him what, let your request be made known to God. He said, Lord, let your servant prosper this day, I pray, and grant me the mercy in the sight of this man. All right. Grant me the mercy in the sight of this man. He prays a prayer of action. Here's what he's saying. God, use me to make it better. And that's a dangerous prayer. If we sang it all the time, use me, Lord, in your service, use me, Lord. And then when he began to use me, like, Lord, I don't know what's going on. He said, I thought you wanted me to use you. In order for me to impact the community, I got to take you through some stuff so that they can know that you for real, that they can know that your anointing is for real. All right. So he prays a prayer of action and he says, God, I want to make my community better. I want to be used. And so here's what I need you to do. I need for you to prosper me. And here's all prayer is. Prayer is summed up in Jeremiah 33:3. It's one of my favorite passages. Here's what God says. Call me. That's prayer. Call me and I will answer you. That's all prayer is. He says, call me and I will answer you. And here's the thing. Here's where we miss prayer. And he says, and I will show you great and mighty things which you don't know. All right. That's what prayer is. Jeremiah 33 says, the Lord says, call me and I'm going to answer and I'm going to show you great and mighty things that you do not know. Here's where we miss it. When we pray and we ask God, God, I need for you to do this. Lord, I need for you to do this. Lord, I need for you to go here. Lord, I need you to fix this. Lord, I need you to go here. And God says, when you pray, I'm going to show you great and mighty things. I'm going to show you how to get it done. I'm going to show you the necessary people you need. But we always pray and ask him to do it. We ask him to fix it. We ask him to give it to us. And he says, no, this is what prayer is. Prayer is me opening your eyes to what shall be, even though it's not yet. All right. So you got to understand that prayer is God showing you. And most of the time God shows you and then we go on about our business. We waiting on him to fix it. He said, I already showed you what to do. I've already shown you who to trust. I've already shown you where the resources are. Well, Lord, you know, I don't like them. I ain't talking to them. I don't know them like that. He said, okay, well, don't ask me about it no more. All right. Don't keep asking me. And I keep showing you through prayer. All right. And so here's the thing. The enemy wants nothing more than you to miss what God has for you. All right. That's what the enemy wants. He wants God to show it to you and you miss it. He be laughing. He like, oh, Lord, he keep asking and God keeps, I see it. I'm the devil and I see what God is showing him, but he don't see it. All right. He wants you to keep everything hidden so you are stumbling around in darkness. That's what the enemy wants. He wants you to keep stumbling around in darkness. God says, I want to show you things so that I can bring you from darkness into the marvelous light. He doesn't want you to ever come to the realization of these two things. The realization of who you are and what's available to you in Christ. All right, that's the power. When you pray, here's what God says. God says, I want to reveal to you who you are. And I also want to reveal to you what's available to you through me. All right. And so that's what the enemy don't want you. If you ever figured out who you are and you ever figure out what God has in store for you, man, your whole life will change. Your whole life will change. You will stop letting people use you. You'll stop letting people put you in crazy positions because hey, I'm not somebody to be used. I am valuable. I have value to the kingdom and I'm not going to keep wasting it because I know who I am now. All right. And so the enemy sometimes put roadblocks and obstacles in your path to trip you up and to get you frustrated right before your breakthrough. All right, that's the trick of the enemy. He wants to get you to have a breakdown right before your breakthrough. One of the people, I heard T.D. Jakes say this one time. He said, what's wrong with the church is people are having breakdowns on the exit where there's a breakthrough. All right. He wants you to have a breakdown on the same exit that your breakthrough is there. All right. And so that's what the enemy wants to do. But not only does the enemy try to hide what God is showing you, but watch this. God also hides things from us as well. Think about this. If you think about it, there is no way God will show us every detail of our lives from start to finish. If God was to show you who's going to lie on you in the process, you might not even go to work tomorrow. If he's going to show you, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go and show you, give you a sneak peek what they're planning. I'm going to go and show you who's lying on you, who's already done went to the bar. I'm going to go and show it to you. Now, don't act the fool tomorrow. Don't go in there cussing nobody. Don't go in there slapping them. I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what they're going to be trying to do. I'm going to show you who's digging ditches for you. I'm going to show you. If he showed you that, you sure wouldn't finish your task because you'll be locked up. All right. So you got to understand that God said, I can't show you everything. Some stuff I have to let you be wounded by it. So now you'll know not to trust him. All right. So you got to understand that God will hide some things from you, not to keep you from being hurt, to keep you from acting a fool. All right. So you got to understand that he's hiding stuff because he knows what we can't handle. Think about it like this. If God would have showed you everything you went through to get to where you are now, some of you would say, you know what? I don't know if I would have done it. All right. I don't know if I would have done it. All right. Because God wants to show us where we are in the process today. All right. And what steps we need to take to get us to our next place to fulfill our destiny and our purpose. All right. So God shows you things on a daily basis. He shows you things on a weekly basis, but he's always giving you a glimpse of big picture. All right. Does that make sense? He's giving you a glimpse of big picture, but he's showing you details on a day-to-day basis so that you can have faith to trust him to fulfill your destiny and purpose. Now watch this. Genesis chapter 12, verse number 1. Genesis chapter 12, verse number 1. Now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country. Get out of your country. All right. That's the command. Get out of your country, from your family and from your father's house. Watch this. To a land that I will what? Show you. All right. That's what he said. Go to a land that I'm going to show you. In other words, once you start moving from your country, once you get away from those family members, I'm going to start revealing the next phase of the plan. So many people are like, I'm not hearing from God. That's because you're not moving. The key to it is you move and God reveals as you go. All right. You move and God reveals to you as you go. Look at Acts chapter 9, verse 15 and 16. He said, but the Lord said, go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to the kings, as well as to the people of Israel. Here it is. And I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. All right. I'm going to show him how much he's going to suffer for my name's sake. It goes back to it. He knows we can't handle that. That's why he didn't show us all the sufferings in the beginning. He just let us experience it. All right. But he knew Paul was built different. He knew Paul was built different. So he showed him some of the things he had to suffer. So that's why when he was shipwrecked, that's why when he was beaten, that's why he went through all that. He had already seen it. God had already shown it to him. All right. So you got to understand prayer is vital. Here's principle number 2. Principle number 2. People with vision are able to prioritize purpose versus profession. All right. They're able to prioritize purpose versus profession. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. Nehemiah 1:11 says this. Oh Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. And then at the end, he just puts this phrase in there. I was cupbearer to the king. All right. Those of you who study the Bible knows that the cupbearer to the king is one of the highest positions you can have in the kingdom. All right. He was the cupbearer to the king. He had to be somebody the king could trust. Now watch this. That was his profession, but it wasn't his purpose. Whew, Lord have mercy. That was his profession, but it wasn't his purpose. Nehemiah had a great vocation that coincides with his vision. All right. He had a great vocation that coincides with his vision. Watch this. His occupation provides him a great opportunity to complete his vision. All right. His occupation, what he was doing, he was a cupbearer to the king. So his occupation provides him with a great opportunity to complete his vision. Here it is. Here it is. Here's the meat of this second principle. Too often we get comfortable with the profession and miss out on our purpose. God didn't intend for you to stay at that job 50 years. You're trying to stay there so you can get a check at the end. And God said, that's not why I got you there. I got you there because somebody there has the resources you need to do what I called you to do. All right. So we've gotten comfortable with the profession and we miss out on our purpose. All right. He already had a good job, but watch this. He didn't let him be comfortable and say, let them do it. I already got a job, got a good job. Let them, if they want to live like that, that's up to them. But when God puts purpose on you, even if it don't affect you personally, you have a vision of what other people can be. All right. So now watch this. Watch this. Nehemiah 2:2-4. So the king asked me, my supervisor asked me, why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart. I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my fathers are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? The king said to me, what is it that you want? Whew, Lord have mercy. His supervisor said to him, what is it that you want? All right. Here's what I want to drive home in the second principle. The resources needed for completion of the vision were connected to the king. All right. The king had the resources. All right. Sometimes all we see is the king got my check. The king got my check. The king got my check. That's all I want. Don't say nothing to me, king. You got my check. He said, no. The king has resources for you to do what I called you to do. All right. Nehemiah's gift, his gift of having a great relationship, his gift put him in position to be a cupbearer, not to have a good check, but to put him in favor with the king. All right. So you got to understand, God may have you in that position, not for you to keep getting a check for 40 years, but for you to get the necessary resources to do what God called you to do to impact the kingdom. All right. So you got to understand there's a difference, and you got to be able to prioritize purpose versus profession. And many of us, we're so tired because we give the earthly king everything we got, and now we're drained to have nothing for our heavenly king. All right. You give everything you got on that job, but you don't have nothing for the kingdom. And I guarantee you, if you sit down and look at everything you do in that 40-hour work week, and you look at everything you do to please that king, and I promise you, it doesn't line up with what you're doing to please the King of Kings. All right. So you got to understand at some point, you got to learn how to prioritize purpose versus profession. Thank God for this job, but that's not all God has for you. Thank God for a good paying job, but that's not all God has for you. All right. So here's an example with David. David was called in to play a musical instrument for the king. All right. He was called in to play a musical instrument for the king. But what was David's purpose? His purpose was to be the king that brought about change for Israel. All right. So you got to understand, he brought you in to play the instrument, but he didn't want you to lead the band for 50 years. All right. So your instrument was only a profession to put you in position for your purpose. All right. Peter was a fisherman. Peter was a fisherman. But God showed him and said, hey, I don't want you fishing for 50 years. I don't want you to have fishing markets in 55 locations. Here's what I need you to do. You know how to fish for men. I need you to fish for men. All right. Now watch this. Here's something that's important. When Peter got to the point where he got away from what God wanted him to do and he went back to fishing, he kept coming up empty. Be careful when you keep giving your profession all you got. At some point, God will say, I'll let you keep coming up empty because you haven't learned how to prioritize purpose versus profession. All right. So you got to understand, when I show up for a job, when I show up on my job, I'm saying what resources are here so that I can do what I need to do. I never shall forget. One of the things that really transformed the way I think about business is listening to Deacon James Scroggins talk about going to Morrison's cafeteria and on the weekend, sometimes sitting down, talking to the owner, sitting down, talking to him about how he started his business, He got all the resources he needs to start his own. Quit making other people rich and wealthy that don't impact the kingdom. Use what God has given you, the gift that you have, to get the necessary resources so that you can impact God's kingdom. All right. That's all he wants you to do. But here's the mindset that we have. And this is the part that's frustrating. Here's the mindset we have. We want to sit there and be unhappy for 60 years just to say we completed and now we can get all the money we can get until we retire, until we die. But you've let 60 years of purpose pass to get a paycheck. All right. So you got to understand, once you get vision and once God paints the picture in your mind, go for it. Change the mindset of the next generation. And that's the reason why I tell people all the time, I'm never upset with athletes who get millions and millions of dollars. Because if I can give you $1 million, that means I can make $1 billion. All right. That means I can make $1 billion. So if I'm making my hundreds, I'm mad at the millionaire who's getting people to turn on the TV because they understood their purpose. So you got to understand, people with vision are able to prioritize purpose from profession. All right. Here's the third principle. People with vision have a plan. All right. People with vision have a plan. Notice what the text says. Nehemiah 2:4-8. The king said to me, what is it you want? That's what the king said. What is it that you want? What is it that you want? Then I prayed to the God of heaven. I didn't just come out and just make up something. I prayed to God and I answered the king. If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my fathers are buried so that I can rebuild it. Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, how long will your journey take? And when will you get back? It pleased the king to send me. So I set a time. I also said to him, if it please the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have a letter to Asaph, keeper of the king's forest, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple and for the city wall and for the residence I will occupy. And because the gracious hand of God was upon me, the king granted my request. All right. Let that sink in. All right. The king asked him, what do you want? He told him what he wanted to do. He said, hey, my people are perishing back home. King says, what do you want? He told him what he needed. And here's the king's question. How long are you going to be gone? All right. And here's what I tell people all the time. And it goes back to the last slide. When God gives you purpose, it doesn't mean you dishonor your job. All right. When God gives you purpose, you fulfill your earthly assignment with your heavenly vision in place. All right. He asked me, how long are you going to be gone? Most of us would have said, I don't know. I'll let you know. I'll send you an email or something. I'll let you know. He already had his plan in place because that's what visionary people do. All right. He plans what he'll say. He plans what he'll need. And he plans the time of his absence from his job. All right. That's it. You got a plan. When people come to you and say, hey, I want to support your vision. I want to do what you need to do. What do I need to do? Here's what I need. Here's how long I'm going to be gone. And here are the resources that I'm asking for. All right. It's very simple. People with vision have a plan. And watch this. Even with a plan, we still rely on God's power. Notice what he said. And because the gracious hand of God was upon me, the king granted my request. When the king asked me, what do you want me to do? I prayed to God. Even with the plan, you got to rely on God's power. All right. Don't rely solely on human help without God's hand. All right. Don't rely solely on human help without God's hand. He said, yes, the king gave me all the stuff I needed. Why? Because God's hand was on me. All right. And why is that important? That helps you to remember who gets the glory. All right. And that's the problem that I see with a lot of people. Lord, I don't know what I would have done. If Mr. Bobo didn't give me this, I wouldn't have never made it. And God said, no. The only reason he gave you that was because my hand was upon you. The only reason he gave you that was because I was the one who directed his heart. The only reason he gave you that was because I was behind the scenes putting it all together. So when you understand the hand of God versus the help of man, you remember who gets the glory. And God says, I'm not sharing my glory with anyone. All right. So you got to understand that provisions are available with patience and a plan. All right. God has the necessary provisions you need, but it comes with patience and a plan. Remember, we talked about in chapter 1, he prayed and asked God to use him to be an instrument. It's 4 months between chapter 1 and chapter 2. All right. So while he's waiting on God to reveal, he's putting his plan together before he goes to the king. 4 months. 4 months, one conversation that probably lasted 5 minutes with the king. It took him 4 months to get ready for a 5-minute conversation. All right. It took him 4 months to get ready for a 5-minute conversation. Let me say that one more time. It took him 4 months to get ready for a 5-minute conversation. And once that 5-minute conversation, he had enough resources to build a wall that blessed everybody in the community. All right. So you got to understand that provisions are available with patience and a plan. All right. And God's favor always gives more than enough. God's favor always give more than enough. Notice what he asked for. He says, if it's possible, can you provide a letter to the governor so that he can give me safe conduct, and I'll arrive there safely. All right. So that I can arrive there safely. And watch what verse 9 says. So I went to the governors of Euphrates and gave them the letter. The king gave me officers and a cavalry to go with me. All I wanted was enough people to make sure I got there safe. And when you got the favor of God, the hand of God in your life, he said, no, I'm just not going to send you with just a few people. I'm going to send you an army of officers and a cavalry because you're carrying vision. Remember this, God's favor will always give you more than you ask for. All right, principle number 4. Vision will always have an impact beyond the individual. All right, vision will always have an impact beyond the individual. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 17, 18. Listen to what it says. Then I said to them, you see the trouble we're in? You see the trouble we're in? Notice what he said. He said, I got a good job, but do you see the trouble we are in? Jerusalem lies in ruins and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and we will no longer be in disgrace. All right. We will no longer be in disgrace. I also told them about the gracious hand of God that was upon me and what the king had said to me. They replied, let's start building. Let's start rebuilding. So they began this good work. Here's all I want to say in this part right here. This is all I want to say in principle number 4. You gotta, when you have vision, here's the question you got to ask yourself. What's your why? What's your why? What's your why? Why do you want God's favor? Why do you want God's resources? Why do you want the king to give you all this stuff? Why do you want to start the business? Why do you want to accumulate some wealth? What's your why? And most people, their why is not going to impact anybody but themselves. And when you have vision, vision will always have an impact beyond the individual. All right. And here's what I'm discovering. Opposition is always threatened when the plan impacts more than the individual. All right. The enemy gets threatened when your plan will impact more than just you. All right. If you're doing something and nobody else is impacted, nobody else is getting a breakthrough, nobody else is getting a blessing, you're like, okay, let him go and go. Let him go and do his thing. Let him go and do his thing. Acts chapter 4, verse 14 through 18. Listen to what it says. But since they could see the man who had been healed standing there with them, there was nothing they could say. So they ordered them to withdraw from the Sanhedrin and they conferred together. What are we going to do with these men? What are we going to do with Peter and James and John? What are we going to do with these men? Everybody living in Jerusalem knows they have done an outstanding miracle and we can't deny it. Here it is, verse 17. But to stop this thing from spreading any further among the people, we must warn these men to stop speaking no longer to anyone in his name. In other words, his translation, their why is bigger than just them. So if we let them keep speaking, people's chains are going to be broken. People are going to understand they're the head and not the tail. They're going to understand that they can do all things through Christ. And that's why the enemy always wants to stop people who have a voice that can give people hope. All right. If you got a voice that can give people hope, the enemy will shoot his best shot at you. All right. Then they called them in again and commanded them, don't speak or teach at all in the name of Jesus. And I tell people all the time, the enemy don't mind you showing up on Sundays and entertainment and clowning and falling out and speaking in tongue and all that, having a good time, having church. No, he don't mind all that. But when you start giving people hope, you start teaching them kingdom principles, you start explaining them about vision, you start explaining to them about how they can impact their family, impact their community, impact something other than them, that's when the enemy gets upset. That's when the enemy says, okay, I need to stop him before he makes an impact that's bigger than the individual. All right, principle number 5, vision provides opportunity that comes with opposition. All right, many of you already know this. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this one. Vision provides opportunity that comes with opposition. All right, watch this. Sometimes you don't know who your opposition is until you start walking in vision. When you start walking in vision and they see, I better do something now because he's starting to walk into what God had for him the whole time. So if he starts walking into that, I might become irrelevant. He might start outshining me. All right. So that's how people think. So when they see you walking in vision, that's when opposition comes. All right. So watch what Nehemiah chapter 2 says. But when Sanballat, the Horonite, Tobiah, the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed. They started laughing. Okay, whatever. What is this? What is this you're doing there? Are you rebelling against the king? I answered them by saying, the God of heaven will give us success. That's all he said. The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding, but as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem, any claim or historic right to it. But here's the shout. Here's the shout. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. God does not allow the opposition to come until his plan is in place. Don't miss that. Don't miss that. These guys show up in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 19 and 20. All right. They show up in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 19 and 20. Watch this. You know when they show up? Here's when they show up. They show up. I've already spent time in prayer. I've already met with the king. I've already got the resources I need. I've already assembled my team. I've already assessed the damage. I've already prepared the plan of action. And then the enemy shows up. Here's the shout. We focus so much on the haters, but here's the shout. God allowed you to get everything you need in place before they even showed up. Lord, have mercy. He allowed you to spend time with him, get your plan together, meet with the king, get the resources. And when they showed up, you already got some momentum. You already are going toward what God has for you. So here's the shot. God provides the necessary time of preparation before allowing persecution. He held them back until you got your plan in place. He held them back until you assemble your team. He held them back until you got all the necessary. When they found out about it, you were about ready to close. When they found out about it, you already had the resources. When they found out about it, you already had the momentum. Thank God that even though he allows the enemy to show up, he held them back until you got in position. All right. But here's the wrong thing about it. Here's the thing that most people do. God gave you time to spend time in prayer. He gave you time to meet with the king. He gave you time to put your plan together. He gave you time to assess the damage. But procrastination will lead us to being overcome by opposition. When you procrastinate, he had 4 months to put his plan in place. God held back the opposition until he can get his plan in place, to get his people in place, so he can get the necessary resources. But procrastination will lead you to being overcome by opposition. All right. So you got to understand that. You got to understand that because vision provides opportunity that comes with opposition. Now watch this. Watch this. Nehemiah chapter 4. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry. See, the first time it was a joke. Now they're becoming angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews and in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria. He said, what are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifice? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from these heaps of rubble, burned as they are? Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, what are they building? Even a fox climbed up on it. He would break the wall down. Now watch verse 7. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the men of Ashdod heard that the repairs of Jerusalem wall had gone ahead and the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. Whew, Lord have mercy. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir trouble up against it. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. Let's go back a slide. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. God gave me time. God gave me time to spend time in prayer, to meet with the king, get the resources I need, assemble the team, assess the damage, prepare the plan. All right. When I first started out, I was dealing with Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem. All right. That's who I was dealing with in chapter 2, verse 19, 20. When I get to chapter 4, I got Sanballat. I got the associates from the army of Samaria. I got the Arabs. I got the Ammonites, and I got the men of Ashdod. All I'm trying to tell you is as your vision grows, as you get closer to what God has for you, as progress continues, opposition grows. It started out with just Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem. Now they got the Arabs. Now they got the Ammonites. Now they got the men of Ashdod. They got associates from the army of Samaria. They got all these people to stop your vision. Whew, Lord have mercy. And here's the part that's interesting to me. And if you think about your life, this will put a smile on your face. Those who normally don't even like each other, those who normally don't even speak to each other will come together to stop your progress. They don't even talk to each other, but now they starting to talk. I know I ain't talked to you in a while, but have you heard what they doing over there? Have you heard what he's doing over there? They come, look at what verse 8 says. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. When I first started, it was a joke. Oh, no, he ain't doing nothing. But the closer you get, Lord have mercy, the closer you get to your breakthrough, the closer you get to being a blessing for other people, don't be surprised if they don't all come together. They don't even like each other. But in order to stop God's vision, they will all come together to fight against you. Whew, Lord have mercy. I'm about to shout all by myself. So, Pastor, how do we handle that? How do we handle all of these people coming together to stop you and your vision? Here it is, Romans 8:31. If God is for us, Lord have mercy. If God is for us, who can be against us? Well, Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, the men of Ashdod, the army of Samaria. If God is for us, who can be against us? Here's what I want to ask you tonight. If one hater can make you quit on what God showed you, it ain't from God. It's not from God. If one person talking about you has made you giving up on what God said, what you said God showed you, that ain't from God. Vision can't be stopped by Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, the men of Ashdod, because God says it's not about you, it's about me. This is about me. This has nothing to do with them. This is about me. All right. And so I gave you the opportunity to get the resources. I gave you the opportunity to get everything you need. So when they show up, I'm already with you. I'm already pushing you toward the end. All right. So not only do you got to understand the size of the opposition, it grows, but you also got to understand the strategy of the opposition. Notice what the text says. Notice what the text says. We're going to try to wrap it up. Notice what the text says. When the word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of our enemies. The list done got so long now, I can't keep calling everybody's name. I'm just going to say the rest of our enemies, that I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it, though up at the time I hadn't put the doors in the gate. Sanballat, Geshem sent me this message. Here it is. Here it is. First they were laughing. Now they plotting. Now here it is. Hey, let's get together and meet. Come, let us meet together in one of the village in the plain of Ono. All right. Be careful. Be careful. They were laughing at you behind your back. They were plotting and all of this. Now they seeing you getting ready to be successful. Now they going to do this. Remember this word, deception by cooperation. All right. Let's partner up. We can do some things now. Let's partner up. I want to be a part of your vision. Let's partner up so I can help you. I see what God is doing in your life, man of God. Be careful when people want to partner up with you at this point. All right. Where were you the nights I had to cry? Where were you when I needed the resources to be developed? Where were you then? That's the first sign of enemy opposition, is that they want to partner up with you. Come, let's have a meeting to discuss what we want to do. All right. If that don't work, all right, that didn't work. That didn't work. So then the next thing is verse 4 and 5. 4 times they sent me the same message. Lord have mercy. 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. Then the 5th time, Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter. So now they want to go through the influence by persistence and power. What do I mean by influence by persistence? They said, well, he said no last week. Let's come back again this week. And most of it, let's be honest, most of you like, you know what, I'm getting tired of them asking, so I'm going to go and meet with them. Let's be honest, that's the kind of stuff we do. That's the kind of stuff we do. It's just one meeting. It's just one meeting. So you're influenced by persistence. They said, if I keep asking him, I'm going to break him down. If I keep asking him, I'm going to break him down. If I keep asking, here's what I love about him. Every time they came, I gave him the same answer. So in other words, they found somebody that could give you a letter that would threaten you. So if influenced by persistence didn't get you, now let me get a letter from city council. Let me get a letter from the mayor. Let me get a letter from somebody that has some power. But they don't understand the vision is coming from the one who has all power. Whew, Lord have mercy. I don't let somebody with some power stop me when I'm hooked up with the one who has all power. All right. So influence by persistence and power don't work with me. Deception by cooperation don't work with me. So watch the last one. This one here just blew my mind. Then one day I went to the house of Shemaiah, who was shut up at his house, and he said, let us meet in the house of God. Let's go to church inside the temple, and let us close the temple doors, because I heard that men are trying to kill you by night, and they're coming to kill you. But I said, should a man like me run away? Or should one like me go into the temple to save my life? I will not go. And watch it. Here's the spirit of discernment. I love this. Here's the spirit of discernment. I realized that God had not sent him. but that he had prophesied against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. So, Pastor, you mean to tell me the joker that's sitting in the pulpit with Bishop by his name will be part of the deception process? He had been hired to intimidate me so that I would commit a sin by doing this, and they would give me a bad name to discredit me. Here's this. Not every person that's trying to stop your vision is outside the walls of the church. Not everybody that's trying to stop your vision may not even come to Bible study or Sunday school. Beware. Jesus told us this. Beware of wolf in sheep's clothing. All right. Sometimes your biggest opposition to your vision is sitting on the same pew in church with you. All right. Here it is. Same enemy, different strategy. I want you to get this tonight. The same energy, different strategy. The enemy will always try to find whatever he can do to stop your vision. All right. That's why he told us, Ephesians 6:11, put on the whole armor of God so that you'll be able to stand firm against the strategies of the devil. Same strategy, different person. All right. So you got to understand that. Here's the last one. Principle 6. Vision requires commitment to completion. The enemy is not going to let you just walk into your vision. He's not going to let you walk into your purpose. He's not going to let you just walk into your business. He's not going to let you walk into something that's going to impact other people. All right. But watch what Nehemiah said. After they kept sending messages, this is how we reply. I'm carrying on a great project. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop and leave to come down to you? And here's what he's saying to us tonight. Here's what he's all right. Realize the magnitude of the mission. Can you hear me now? All right. Realize the magnitude of your mission. Here's the second one. Realize the power of persistence. All right. You got to realize those two things. Realize the magnitude of your mission. If I quit, how many people are still going to be living in disgrace? If I quit, how many people are still going to be living a life of mediocrity? If I quit, if I get tired now, how many people's lives won't be impacted? To the people of fitness, if I quit, how many people are going to die unhealthy? All right. So you got to realize the magnitude of your mission. You can quit your job and they're going to find somebody else to replace you tomorrow. You can quit your job, and as valuable as you think you are, they'll find somebody for you. As valuable as I believe I am to Mount Olive, if I leave tomorrow, they'll put a search committee in and somebody else will come and do something that I'm doing right now. But nobody can do the vision that God gave you to do. So you got to understand the magnitude of your mission. How many people are suffering? How many people are suffering because you don't understand the magnitude of what God put inside of you? All right. You don't understand the magnitude of what God put inside of you. And here's the last one. Realize the power of persistence. Realize the power of persistence. I can't give up. I got to keep pushing because too many people are going to be impacted by my completion. And the text says, so the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. Something that stayed broken down for over 147 years was put together in 52 days. It don't take long when you got a plan that's been bathed with prayer and you receive the power and the provisions from God. All right. And watch what it says. When all of our enemies heard about this and all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. That's if anybody who knows me knows what I'm doing now, they understand that I understand only way I'm able to pull this off is the hand of God have to be on my life. And that's when you know that God has his hand on it, is that when you realize and other people realize that this work has been done with the help of God. So let's recap. Principle 1, prayer is vital to the vision. Spend time in prayer. Spend time in prayer and watch this. Watch what God show you through prayer. Principle number 2. People with vision are able to prioritize purpose versus profession. Thank God for my job. Thank God for that paycheck. But I got to put that in perspective when it comes to purpose. God has put somebody on my job to give me the necessary resources to fulfill my purpose. All right. Principle number 3. People with vision have a plan. All right. People with vision have a plan. When I go to that bank, when I go to my supervisor, when I go to this person that's going to help me get to what I need to have a plan in place. All right. Principle number 4, vision will always have an impact beyond the individual. If what I'm doing only impacts me and my family, it may not be from God. It's just something I put together that's going to be successful for me and my family. But vision will always have an impact that goes beyond the individual. Vision provides opportunity that comes with opposition. But here's a shout. God will always give you time and allow you to put your plan in place, allow you to get the necessary resources before he let the opposition come and distract you. All right. Principle number 6,